Oh, what a wild week March started out with, huh? When I did a snapshot of the year in around mid-January, I had highlighted a couple of big transits that were happening, and I did anticipate something kind of big showing up when Mars went into square position with Uranus right at the turn of this month. But let's just say I'm even more watchful of things that are going to be happening later on in this year because of astrology transits. To say it as lightly as possible. We have some big things happening, and I want to go ahead and jump into the cards. I also want to tell you where the planets are at and highlight what is being spoken about in the reading that has shown up for this week. I pulled us 10 cards, and I guess I just want to ask your preference. Do you prefer that I talk about where the planets are at first, that I do a reading just of the cards and then go into the planetary references, or do you like that I kind of put them all together? I'm going to start today with just sharing where the planets are, and then we'll go into the tarot. And if you have any questions, feel free to comment. Of course, I would appreciate that. And if you want to kind of reference what I was just speaking of, I did put that video out on January 19th, and I was talking about the historical synchronicities with astrology transits. So let's talk about where the planets are at. If we look at where the north and south node are, we just went through an eclipse, right? Eclipses are based on the placement of the nodes. The nodes are always placed at 180 degrees of each other. The north node is at roughly 9 degrees of Pisces. The south node is at 9 degrees of Virgo. They're 180 degrees apart. Then we have the sun. The sun currently is at exactly 17 degrees Pisces. We just had the, full moon when the moon was opposite of the sun a little while ago. Now the moon is currently placed at 14 degrees of Scorpio over here in this water sign. We have Mercury at 15 degrees of Pisces, so it's just a couple degrees behind the sun. They were just in a Cazimi moment, which if you are very intuitively inclined, you may have gotten some kind of message or kind of information that came into you in that time. And we are also currently in a time of Mercury retrograde. So information could be getting brought to you, being that Mercury is the messenger of the gods, and he does like to bring us information. Now, Venus is currently at 2 degrees of Aries. You'll see that it is in the same point of Saturn. It's actually in conjunction with Saturn today. We have Mars at 4 degrees of Pisces, so you see that it's kind of like gaining speed. It'll actually cross over the point of the node on this Friday, the 13th. So whatever change has kind of been in the air since the eclipse happened, we might see a big shift this day because Mars is a very activating planet. He tends to make things happen, sever things, and eclipses are times of big endings which result in new beginnings. So, there might be this kind of severing point that happens this Friday on the 13th, coincidentally enough. We also have Jupiter at 15 degrees of Cancer. It is currently in retrograde. It'll be retrograde for a couple of more days until the 11th of March when it goes direct in Cancer. Mercury will be coming out of retrograde on the 21st of March, so actually on the spring equinox, and then at that point we'll have all planets moving direct. We won't have any planets going retrograde or apparently moving retrograde. Then we have Saturn, as I mentioned before, is at 2 degrees of Aries. We have Uranus over here at 27 degrees of Taurus. It was when Mars was at 27 degrees of Aquarius that we saw that big shift that happened geopolitically. And then we have Neptune at 1 degree of Aries and Pluto at 4 degrees of Aquarius. So they're all kind of scattered about. If you woke up this morning, or if you wake up tomorrow morning for that matter, before the sun rises, you might be able to see Mars on the eastern horizon just before the sun rises. And then you'll see, the moon will be kind of in its waning stage. You'll also be able to see the moon during the daytime, right? It'll be waning as it gets closer to the sun. And then as the sun sets in the evening tonight, you may be able to see Venus here on the western horizon, and then Jupiter up here just around zenith position. So keep in mind when you're looking at this diagram, you are facing south, just like we face the zenith of the sun, which places the east on the left side of the chart and west on the right side of this chart where the sun sets. Now, let's talk about the cards for this week. I pulled us 10 cards because we had a lot of big guys show up. And our opening card for our reading for this week is actually the Four of Pentacles. We see someone who is sitting inside of an enclosure, like a brick enclosure. They have a pentacle on their head. They have one that they are wrapping around their chest, and they have one underneath each foot. So this is a very stable, grounded card, and you see that just by the positioning of the person by way of their somatics. But they're really clingy. They're really like clinging to their budget. They're looking at everything that they have. They're budgeting their resources. They have their resources and their values on their mind. They have it strapped to their heart, and they have it under their feet. And this is a very stable card, but it's also a card that's a little concerning because this person isn't out in the world enjoying the fruits of their labor. They're isolating themselves. They're drawing inward. And that might be what a lot of people are kind of feeling the urge to do, is really evaluate what resources they have, evaluate their belief systems. There's been a lot of things that have happened in the last week, let alone the last few months of this year. And it's been a big shifting year that has made a lot of us look at these things, because it's our pentacles or our coins, which are our values. It's not only our finances, it's also our body. It's our physical reality. It's everything associated with the element of earth. And this is our opening energy of this reading for this week. Now, our challenge that's showing up for this week is interesting because it's shown up before. I've been pulling cards every day. I don't do readings every day, mostly because I don't have a lot of time right now. I'm hoping to get back to that when I can get, some more donations for my readings, and just, my business picks up in general as far as my readings and my other wares and things that I sell. I'm also going to be putting out a book this year, so hopefully that will help kind of fund this endeavor of, free readings for people. But our challenge that is showing up for this week and this time frame is the Six of Wands. So in the Six of Wands, we've seen this a lot before recently, particularly this year. We see someone who is carrying a wand that has this laurel leaf on it, which is typically a symbol of victory. And they're on a horse and they're riding away from a group of people. And those groups of people, some of them are kind of snickering, some of them are cheering them on, but they're moving forward based on some kind of success or something that happened. And this is showing up as our challenge. So I would actually argue that it's how do we move forward after we've been through something? How do we carry ourselves forward after we've been through some kind of hardship? Because we've been through a really big kind of eye-opening lightning bolt kind of change of awareness. And I say that because the Tower showed up as the way to move through the challenge. And the Tower card is associated with the planet Mars, coincidentally enough. And we did just go through this Tower moment as a society when Mars was square Uranus just around a week ago on the 27th. We shifted from February 27th into February 28th, Mars went into perfect square position with Uranus. Uranus is getting ready to leave the sign of Taurus and move into Gemini, which historically has been a time that has been heightened with a lot of turmoil. And so Mars is basically like the ball that strikes down the domino, right? It's when we see things, we've been building up this tower of Babel, quite literally, that's what this card is referring to, and a lightning bolt came and struck it down. And so how do you pick up the pieces after that? How do you move forward? And the thing is, you know, Mars can't destroy anything that is truly real. So in some ways, this shift and this change is trying to get us back to solid ground, but it's not without big things happening, right? And we see that by way of this card. When the tower shows up, it's not a lighthearted, cheerful thing. It's a time of unavoidable, unexpected change. And the way through that challenge is coming through by way of the Seven of Wands. Now we see someone who's wearing two different shoes. They are holding a wand almost like in a defensive position, and there's 6 wands that are kind of surrounding them while they stand on this platform. Now this card, because it is a 7, is associated with learning through some kind of experience, but this is a learning through setting our boundaries and, you know, holding a space separate than everything that is going on around us, because the wand is associated with our will. It's associated with our fire. It's associated with where we put our energy by way of our force, right? And our active attention. And the wands in this situation is someone who is holding some space for themselves. And that is important in regard to how you engage in situations, how you engage in conversations, how you engage with your own mind, how you engage with social media, how you engage with your job, how you engage with your family, how you engage with everything that presses on, you know, your solid ground. And this is followed by the Page of Swords. Now the Page of Swords showing up is pretty key to the reading for this week, or for this span of time. The Page of Swords is associated with not only the sign of Gemini, because it's considered an integral air card, right? It's a neutral air card, so it's associated with the sign of Gemini, but it's also therefore associated with Mercury. And Mercury is doing some interesting things this year in that it's retrograding all this year. It is retrograding in water signs. So it just right now is in the retrograde process of Pisces. And it's, interestingly enough, going over the North Node. And so I think there's that aspect that's being highlighted in the reading today. And then there's also the aspect of the turning of time. Now, Uranus is currently in the sign of Taurus. It's been in the sign of Taurus for roughly about 7 years. It dipped into Taurus in 2018, retrograded back into Aries, and then fully went into Taurus in 2019. So we've been seeing a lot of changes and shifts to our monetary system, our agricultural system, our values in general. And then it has 7-year cycles. So it is shifting out of the sign of Taurus in April of this year, and it will be shifting into the sign of Gemini. Now, it will technically be shifting into the sign of Gemini on April 26th, but there's an interesting aspect too to consider, that we'll have some other shifts happening this year, but especially around this sign of Gemini. I think that it's important to consider what's going on in Gemini right now. You know, we have just Uranus getting ready to go into that space. And historically, whenever Uranus has been in the sign of Gemini, there has been some kind of turmoil within the United States. Uranus has a cycle of 84 years. So that's what I highlighted in my video on January 19th. So you're welcome to go back and look at that video if you would like more information about that. Now, I also raised the situation around what's going on with the planet Uranus in Gemini because the Page of Swords was followed by the Fool card in the reading for this week. And the Fool card is actually the first major arcana. It's actually numbered 0, but it is the first in the major arcana series of the Tarot deck. And it has the number 0 because it encompasses all and everything. And within the number 0 is the potential for all and everything. And it is highlighting this energetic of big shifts. And interestingly enough, when you look at the Fool in this card, they're getting ready to step off of a precipice with complete faith and trust because they are following like the breath of God. It's associated with Aleph of the Kabbalah. So in this situation, I think that we are kind of going through all of this turmoil and all of these shifts because it's really bringing us back to a sense of who are we, right? Like society tells us, it tells you, it tells me, it tells your neighbor, it tells your family member and your cousin and, you know, the person who lives down the road. It tells each and every one of us who we're supposed to be and what we're expected to be and how we're expected to act. And we're seeing a lot of the way that we've been conditioned to kind of trust and have faith in some people kind of crumble away. And it's also bringing us to this idea of like, well, what do we really feel called to do and to be in this world as it's falling apart? And how do we hold our light? How do we act and interact in the world? What's important to us? And this is really about following your own inspiration, following your heart in a lot of ways, and trusting that the things that are shifting and moving and changing are allowing for something new to come in. And so that might be a big shift to your job. That might be a big shift to your relationship. That might be a big shift to your health, you know, something that is so big that it makes you see through the veil of delusion that we've been in for a good amount of time, because Neptune has been in the sign of Pisces for over a dozen years. And so it's as if all of that illusion is washing away and we're starting to see through it with clarity of sight, and we have to respond to our own inner knowing and the own situation. Now, it's going to bring us to a real sense of our beliefs. Now, that's followed by the Five of Pentacles. And when you look at this card, you see two people who have been through it. They look a little beaten up and a little bit in a state of despair, but behind them is this beautiful stained glass window. And this is a number 5 card, and associated with the Pentacles, it's associated with a financial loss, but some kind of renewal, a spiritual sense of renewal, a spiritual sense of valuation and belief systems. Because why aren't they going inside of this structure? Why are they staying outside and in this space of hardship? Fives are all about choosing a road, right? There are people who have absolutely nothing that feel absolutely happy, and they don't feel like despair the way that someone else who lives in a mansion might imagine their despair. Like they could be rich with their family and rich with their culture and rich with their community, whereas the person who has the expensive mansion and has the 10 cars and the jet has no sense of community. They are so spiritually poor in their essence of self that they keep trying to feed it and satiate it with all of these things. And it isn't those things that are truly what bring anyone happiness. What brings everyone happiness is something that is about connection. Because when it comes down to it, we are mammals. We are beings who thrive on connection, not separation. And this is bringing us to a new sense of evaluation. This is a big shift for a lot of people this year. For further clarity, we have 3 more cards, and the Queen of Cups showed up. The Queen of Cups is associated with the sign of Cancer, and I think that's really important to consider, because a lot of times when cards show up that are associated with specific zodiac signs, it can cue me to what's going on in that sign by way of what planet is there, and also what is going to be happening in that area for this year. And currently we have Jupiter in the sign of Cancer, which it likes to be in Cancer, but it's been retrograde. So it's going to start moving direct in a couple of days. We also have Mercury moving direct by about mid-month. So as I had mentioned, you know, as of the spring equinox, we will have all planets moving forward. Nothing will be retrograde by way of our line of sight. But the other aspect that I want to bring up as far as what's happening in June, because there is a big thing happening in June, and there's also just a big thing happening during the time frame of the sign of Cancer. So we just had a big global shift on the 27th of February, 28th of February, and internationally, right? And it was synchronistically happening at the time that Mars was in a square relationship with the planet Uranus. And they were both at 27 degrees. Mars was at 27 degrees of Aquarius, and Uranus is at 27 degrees of Taurus. They're in square position. They're both fixed signs. Taurus is fixed earth. Aquarius is fixed air. 90 degrees, right? Square. Difficult, challenging relationship. Well, on July 3rd, which is during the time of the zodiac sign of Cancer, Mars will come into conjunction with the planet Uranus. So consider that the planet Uranus is a planet of big, unavoidable changes, and Mars is a planet of action. It moves things into action. It engages things, right? It's considered the warrior planet, and that's because it's not passive. It's not a passive planet, right? So that is being highlighted in this reading, which I think that we need to look out for. And then that is further clarified by the major arcana of the Justice card. Now, the Justice card is a card that brings up one-to-one relationships and contracts. And so we may see something kind of shift when we go into the sign of Libra, more towards the end of the year. I think we'll also see some big shifts, more so when Mercury is in retrograde right after we move through the sign of Libra. So Libra comes before Scorpio. Mercury will travel through that, go into Scorpio, then retrograde, and then move back again. So I think we're really watching a lot of what happens with this during this time frame, and also considering that we will have another eclipse towards that time of year. So this is going to be a pretty intense summer, I feel like, just based on where Uranus is at and shifting into, and when it will meet up with Mars. And so I just kind of want to have everybody keep that in mind as far as what you are deciding to do this year, what projects you feel are most important to engage with and follow through with. And I say that ultimately because our ultimate ending for our reading for this week is the Three of Pentacles. So we started out with the Four of Pentacles, we ended with the Three of Pentacles, and we see in the Three of Pentacles someone is actually building something. They are the master craftsman. They are putting their ideas out into the world, and perhaps that is what chaos is for. You know, it shakes the ground underneath our feet so that we don't do as we are conditioned to do, but we do what we are called to do and inspired to do, and ultimately rebuild something, because we're rebuilding something after we've kind of gone through this process of things being broken down. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I am my nervous system has kind of been on edge a lot of this year. I've had a lot of big changes this year with like my car and my job and everything that's going on in the world, and I'm sure everyone has had their own personal flavor of that, you know, Baskin-Robbins style. There's 31 flavors for everybody, but it ultimately depends on what's going on in your chart and how these planets are affecting you and your chart. Like we just had this big stellium go through Aquarius. I have a lot of planets in Scorpio, so it's going to be challenging for me because they trigger all of those when they go through those 90-degree angles and aspects. But there's positive angles too, you know, when you look at trines or sextiles. Like astrology isn't like just a reason for us to shake our fist at our sky, but it more provides a level of understanding of what's going on and gives you some insight as to kind of the shifts that are happening in your world so that you can not take it so personally, even though a lot of us do. We're here, after all, to be on this journey of life and to evolve as beings and participate in community and help wherever we can. And so that's why I'm providing these readings and provide the tools that I have for people in my community. I am going to be offering some classes coming up. They'll be starting probably towards the end of April. I'll have weekend classes, either in person or in Zoom. I'm kind of debating where people are at and if they want to take a Zoom class going over things, or if they would prefer to physically travel to where I'm at, or schedule for me to travel to where they're at. Yeah, because I just think it's really important that moving forward in the world that we live in, that we have some practical skills, and some that I've collected on my path are useful. And so I want to share them with others. So I'll be offering some medicine making classes, some classes regarding like different botanical extractions and how they differ. I'll also be offering some astrology classes. And yeah, if you'd like to participate in any of those, let me know. If you'd like a personal reading, you can go ahead and order one through my website, rootsofalchemy.com. You can also order my tarot cards. I have sets of these for sale on my website, as well as a large number of different body care products, which I am in the process of bringing back up to stock. So I'll have them available for festivals and different things that I'm going to throughout this summer. But I send you a good wish. I hope you are well, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye for now. Mwah.